Okay, we're going to spend the next few lessons talking about the Industrial Revolution here in America. Now, it doesn't begin in America. It actually begins in England, but people and ideas bring those ideas over to America, and it absolutely explodes here in America. This was huge changes in our country's history. And there's a couple ways we can look at this. The way that we're going to look at the Industrial Revolution here in this class is we're going to look at the macro level and the micro level. The macro are big changes that affect society as a whole. The micro level, these are smaller changes that affect the individual. So we'll spend some time talking about the impact on individuals on the micro level. On the macro level, we'll talk about what these big changes themselves were. Now, on the micro level, some things we'll talk about are the key industrialists, the major inventions and improvements that benefited society. Of these key industrialists, we'll talk about who were these men. They became extremely wealthy during the Industrial Revolution, but what did they do and what made them different? We'll talk about people like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, John Rockefeller, and Cornelius Vanderbilt, and they built tremendous fortunes. They would be, in today's money, they would be richer than Bill Gates is rich. They were tremendously wealthy, and with that, tremendously powerful. So we'll talk about these key industrialists. We're also going to talk about some major inventions. The invention of the light bulb. We'll talk about the expansion of railroads. We'll talk about telephones and how that changes society. And then, of course, the automobile, which defines American society in the coming generations. On top of that, we'll talk about improvements that benefited society as a whole. We had better transportation system, we had a more complex banking system, improvements in the way that we communicated with one another, and then of course the capture and use of natural resources. And we'll focus on coal and oil because those were huge natural resources that were used during the Industrial Revolution. Now those things will be on the macro level. Now on the micro level, like I said, I want to focus on the individuals here. So we have something called farms to factories, which occurred. People leaving the farms, or fewer and fewer farms, more and more people, instead of working on farms, now they're working in factories and they're living in urban, crowded settings. It's a huge shift in American population. We'll talk about waves of immigrants because we absolutely had wave after wave of immigrants that came from various parts of the world. And they came to America the hope was looking for a better life. We'll also talk about what type of work that these immigrants performed when they were here. They often had the most dangerous and dirty work that was found in the Industrial Revolution, and the new immigrants did that work. And it wouldn't be correct to talk about the Industrial Revolution if we didn't talk about the exploitation of workers, because clearly this happened. The working conditions for many people were horrible. There was a lack of safety, no overtime pay, no sick pay, no vacation pay, no weekends. And then if you got hurt on the job, you would lose your job if you didn't show up the next day. So there was no workers' compensation, meaning you didn't get your hospital bills paid. And then you didn't get paid when you were still injured and couldn't go back to work. Those things have changed. We've also changed child labor. Children were considered little adults, and they often worked in very dangerous, dirty conditions. So we'll talk about that, the exploitation of workers during the Industrial Revolution. There are some great things about the Industrial Revolution, and there's honestly some embarrassing things that happened, the way that people were treated. We'll talk about those. And then we're going to finish up talking about two major ideas that clash during the Industrial Revolution: social Darwinism versus an idea called social gospel. And we'll talk about those when we get done talking about the other details. So there you go. These will be the ideas. We will be covering these in the Industrial Revolution.